The language you often use is contributing to the meaning you're placing in the experience you're having in the moment. My name is Coach Sean. I'm a faith-based relationship coach, and something that I've learned through experience coupled with those I've been able to coach alongside additional studies and just what I've learned from other people is that you got to be careful with the language that you use, because it often is positioning the meaning you're attributing to what you're experiencing in relationships specifically. And this goes for marriage, dating, even friendships beyond. Okay. What I've learned is that a lot of people who get into disagreements with one another often posture their language as we're fighting. Fighting is a great everyday term that's used in relationships that automatically assumes a winner and a loser. When you use terms like we're fighting, one person is winning, the other is losing. One has the advantage and the other is at a disadvantage. And it quickly perpetuates into a you versus me versus the problem, instead of you and me versus the problem. The latter speaking to unity, the former speaking to separation. The latter speaking to power, the other speaking to force. And when you use language like that and the meaning that we've already quickly attributed, well, no wonder you can't get on the same page. No wonder you can't see anything but what's wrong about this individual, or continue to count the numerous of failures that this person has attributed to your life, where all the good goes out the window and only the wrong is what you focus on. It's because of the language used that is attributing to specific meaning that continues to further divide instead of allow room for reconnectivity that then leads to reuniting. I want to use this scripture as a reference lightly. Mark chapter 3, which presents a beautiful Mark sandwich. And in this text, we see the Pharisees questioning Jesus, basically saying that him delivering demons means he's Satan. They've blasphemed the Holy Spirit completely here. And Jesus responds very graciously with some illustrations, but first proclaiming that how and why would Satan cast out Satan, and the perspective that a kingdom divided through civil war will ultimately fall apart. He then gives another illustration of understanding that for one who is already strong in his home to be overtaken, it takes one who is stronger, right, to come into the house to tie him up. And then he ends this whole Mark sandwich, which orchestrates a beginning of a story that interrupts with a completion of a story that then finishes with the completion of the initial story initiated. Jesus says that his family are those who do God's will, because the story ultimately begins with his family looking for him because he's doing ministry work and hasn't eaten. I'm not going to touch all this, but I just want to highlight this specific point from Mark 3, is that in order for the kingdom to be effective, the bigger point here is that unification is necessary. And the question is, what are you unified on? And being unified through a common mission, common behavior, and a common love. Or as I like to put it, a common purpose, practice, and power. Because this is actually what's going to bring unification between people, more importantly, between those of us who are following after Christ. And to another degree, the relationships that you cultivate, the people that you connect with, the relationships that you build. Unity is important, right? For even Amos tells us, how can two walk together except they be agreed? Of course, not be agreed in everything, but be agreed that goes further than surface level things. We're agreed foundationally. We're aligned, okay, in various different ways. But I want you to think about from the lens of the power, the practice, and the purpose. The purpose, the common mission, well, to reflect God's kingdom, to reflect the heart of Christ, a mission to love God and love people. Cool. Then we have the practice, because it's not just talk, this is action. This is how we live. This doesn't stop challenges from coming, disagreements from coming, but it ultimately helps us navigate these things in a healthier way that reflects a healthier heart. But then that leads us to the power that isn't force, but love. Love that's abundant, love that's fulfilling, a love that operates in a place where I want to serve to the needs of others around me, not because of anything I may get in return, not from selfish motives, not from attachments, but from a place of loving this person because doing this, meeting their need, fills me up, allows me to glow, allows me to be full and move even healthier because I know others around me are having needs met, okay? Connections are able to be built, stabilized, and as a result, grow further in abundance. What am I trying to tell you in all this? Your relationships take a hit when you approach it like the Pharisees. Pharisees and the religious leaders moved religiously by using a very forceful language to describe what Jesus was doing, which wasn't what Jesus was doing, because they described him as something that was completely opposite to who he is. Whereas Jesus uses language that offers unity. He doesn't hide from the truth. He says like it is, but he also offers unity in the sense of speaking to illustrations and examples of him being the greatest love, of his power being what is most effective and useful to the specific situation at hand. When you move with a religious attitude in any given manner, even when it comes to your relationships, you're quick to call something that really isn't there. You're quick to use forceful language that puts you and the person you're connected with at odds. It gives you an upper hand, it gives them a lower position, it makes you greater, it makes them lesser, it makes you the winner, it makes them the loser, all because of the language that's used to describe the experience being had. Because you said we're fighting, you said we're at odds, you said we're butting heads. And that in and of itself has already postured your heart to take on a position that you need to win, because it becomes more about you winning the argument instead of doing and getting to what's right. It became more about you being the person that was right all along, had bragging rights, instead of connecting to the heart of the individual, seeing beyond the surface responses, the facial expressions, the heightened tone, the body language that seemed to be disconnected. And instead of using that as information to check in with your significant other or to check in with your friend or to reconnect, to get to the bottom of it, to clear the debris, to get to the bottom of the love that you both have for one another in order to continue moving forward, you took that personally. And you took that as information to continue furthering the divide by not engaging with the conversation, ghosting, avoiding, giving the silent treatment, or sparking up more and more arguments from force, forgetting that the entire purpose of what you're arguing about isn't even really the argument in and of itself. It's more so you two trying to get across these barriers, breaking down these walls that are slowly being built, keeping you from connecting to one another. And I think with power, it gives you the ability to tear down the wall together. Instead of creating a wall where you both are facing each other, somebody walks around the wall to partner with one another, lock arms, and to take down the wall, which is the problem, one by one together. Because when it's us versus the problem, we can conquer. Because when there's unity, there's the ability to conquer. But when there's division, everything falls. So the question you have to ask is, what are you experiencing in this moment? What meaning are you attributing to this moment? What's the story that's being created? And then what's the common goal? What are you after? Are you after being right in this situation? Are you after having bragging rights? Are you after trying to add another record as to why you're the better spouse, the better friend, the smarter friend? Or are you actually after trying to reconnect and restore this relationship in a healthy way where love lasts, where the connection is able to still be fruitful for the season and for the time being, and what you're fighting over is actually just something you both are trying to move out of the way to reconnect through instead of use as a reason and a meaning to stay disconnected from one another? How much better can your relationships get when you choose to reframe the language you use? That then changes the posture, that then changes the body response, that then changes the emotions and meaning that you attribute to the moment, that you attribute to the experience, and that you overall give to the relationship as a whole. If you choose language of separation and division, it automatically assumes a winner and a loser, and it automatically assumes that you have to do all it takes and all it needs in order for you to get the upper hand. But when you use language of unity, we instead of me and I, us, instead of you versus me versus the problem, when you use love and efforts of reassurance and repair, instead of constantly projecting, blaming, and never acknowledging the need, the problem, the issue that is being communicated from the other person. If you ever take time to mirror what's being said, and you're always listening to respond instead of just listening to hear and understand what's being said, your relationships can change for the better or the worse depending on which direction you take. And furthermore, from a bigger picture and concept of this text, the unity that is ultimately called for the body to walk in can change a lot depending on the language we use, that either opens up windows of opportunity to reconnect in love, or depending on the language you use, automatically assumes different positions and postures of winning and losing, and ultimately division in the end, as these seeds of conversations and conflict, if going unsolved, creates a compound effect of what ultimately leads ahead. I hope this made sense. What language are you using? What meaning are you attributing? What emotions are being present? And what is your ultimate goal? And if you really have love for somebody as much as you do, if you really genuinely appreciate the friendship and connection as much as you say you do, then there are some things you're fighting over and you're clinging to and you're holding grudges over that you need to be willing to swallow your pride to let go of, not to people please, but because you show, hey, I value this relationship enough to get to the bottom of this and want to listen to what you have to say to make adjustments. And I want you to create the same space in order for us to get to the place of partnering together to unify against the problem, instead of it turning into you versus me versus the problem that creates further division and separation. If this made sense, I want you to do me a favor, type secure in the comment section below, and follow for more as we continue navigating through our healing and doing relationships the right way. We start with doing the healing work on ourselves first, which ultimately has us reframing the language we use that gives us insight to how we should approach one another, and the language that we use either opening up windows of opportunity for reconnection, for unity, for power, for purpose, for practice, or language that opens up spotlights where we only come into agreement with things that create further division and separation along the way.